been a long, long off-season, but the days are getting longer. There's 12 teams at the foot of the mountain. All roads lead to Old Trafford. The Betfred Super League is back, and there's nothing like league.
Oi! Are you watching? You don't want to miss this. This game's too fast, too tough, and too big to ignore. J-Field, cheat code pace.
That is superb from Field.
Mike is gonna put on a show and go.
Oh, yes!
Ipape on fire! You wanna win at this game? You're gonna have to use that head as well as those wheels. Lomax, his brain is faster than a chess grandmaster. Keep your eyes on Cruz. Sam's gonna put it on the plate.
What a ball that was from Sam Tompkins.
And who's getting in the way of that? 2023 is gonna unearth more wonder kids.
And Jason Gatti, as he did on his debut.
But the best got better last year. Saints gonna do 5? These guys have been sweating to stop them. And that ain't all of it. We've got stars waiting for their chance to shine. There's nothing like league. And this is the Betfred Super League.
Yeah, welcome to a brand new season of The Last Tackle here on the Sportsman Rugby League. We're with you every Wednesday all the way up to the grand final. We'll have live games, exclusive features and interviews, and so much more, joined by the great and the good from the world of Rugby League. And this week, alongside me, two giants of the front row, Jamie Peacock and Kyle Amor. Gents, this is such an exciting time of year, isn't it? Jamie, I'll come to you first. Round one. Doesn't get much better, does it?
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year. I thought we finished the season in great fashion with the World Cup last year. It doesn't feel too long since we were playing Rugby League, but I think it's hugely exciting. You know, this time of year is all speculation. Who's had the best signings? Who's had the best pre-season? And I think, obviously, the biggest question on everybody's lips is who can stop St Helens this year?
Kyle, a little bit different, I guess, this pre-season for you compared to what you've been used to. Have you been finding
just a bit, Lewis, yeah, just a bit. No, but look, I've been enjoying it. Obviously now playing part-time, you know, it has sort of, you know, new challenges and different ones. But going back to what you're saying, I echo JP as well there, that everyone as players this time of year, they're all really excited. The hard work's been done, and everybody's just looking forward to kicking it off, and hopefully, you know, all the teams will be wanting that W next to the name come the end of the weekend.
Well, we're going to start with your former club, St Helens. Obviously not in Super League action this week because they're out in Australia. World Club Challenge against the Penrith Panthers. It's a huge, huge task, Kyle. But could they bring that trophy home on Saturday?
Well, look, I think it is a huge task. You know, you throw into it now the news that we've heard over the last 48 hours around the kick-off time being put back another hour due to the extreme heat. So it's just another challenge. But, you know, having spent a number of years with that group of players, they take all these challenges head on. And in fact, if anything, it kind of lifts them, really. But, you know, the squad itself, you know, that starting 17 is relatively unchanged. Although, you know, Paul Wellens is now in charge at St Helens, there hasn't been too much change, so they've got everything in their favour on the rugby field. From a St Helens point of view, the challenge is, of course, with the other side of the world playing against a pretty good side in back-to-back champions in the Penrith Panthers.
Yep. JP, I know you used to love getting stuck into the Aussies, whether that was in these kind of domestic games or internationally. How good are these occasions as a player?
Yeah, as a player, you want to test yourself against the best in the world, and you do that when you're playing the World Club Challenge. And I think for me, Saints' run over the last 4 years has been extraordinary, the amount of silverware they've won. But I feel this is the biggest challenge that this group of players will have had in those 4 years. The Penrith side are not just a good NRL side, they've been the standout NRL side for the last couple of years. They've been blitzing NRL side. So I think if Saints can walk away from this and become World Cup challengers, that will be the finest achievement, I think, of any Super League club in the modern era.
And we were just talking about this off air. The kick-off time has been brought back an hour. It's an hour later.
Yeah.
Because of the heat, it's still going to be very, very hot out there, Carl. How much is that going to take an effect, and how, particularly for the forwards, how much of an impact could that have?
Well, it's huge, and you see that's why they've added that extra interchange. They're going to play the game in quarters. They've relaxed the restrictions of water carriers to make sure that the players are ultimately as safe as they can be. But those sorts of, rule changes, they don't get thrown in there for the sake of it. They are very much needed, and I think, some of the bigger players, your Alex Walmsleys, they'll be sort of rubbing their hands with that, a little bit of a break and an extra rotation. But I just think that this Penrith side, JP mentioned about how good they have been over the last couple of years. Their whole back line is, full of Australian, Samoan internationals. We saw them all playing in the World Cup there. And, Saints have got a lot to do, but I don't think that, look, let's be honest, I think most people, everybody wants them to win, I think, but most people are accepting that it's going to be a pretty difficult task. But there'll be one thing I can tell you, though, there'll be 13, 17 blokes in that room ready to go and ready to climb into them. They've got nothing to lose, in my opinion. They might as well just go out there and give it the best shot. And as JP said again, if they can get that done, well, that'll probably go down as one of the biggest achievements in our game.
Well, they've been out there for a couple of weeks acclimatising. They had that warm-up hit out against St George last weekend. But before they flew out, I went over to the Totally Wicked Stadium to catch up with Morgan Knowles.
Morgan, this team has won 4 in a row. You've only had one crack at the Aussies in that time. How desperate are you to get out there and get stuck in?
Yeah, we're really excited, really looking forward to it. Obviously, because of the current climate and everything, that's been taken away from us, that opportunity the last 2 years. So we're really excited and looking forward to getting out there and having a crack.
And plenty of change, Wello at the top now, but has that kind of been more of a continuation of what's been before rather than a big upheaval?
Yeah, there's not been too much change really. Obviously, Wello's come in, but Wello's been around the group, he knows what works, and as for players wise, there's not been too many in and out, so we know what works for us and our role, so it'll be more of the same.
The Super League teams always seem to be written off in these games by virtue of being the Super League team, but you must be quietly confident with the success you've had in the last few years that you're good to go. Yeah,
well, we'll be underdogs going in. As a Super League, obviously we get rated as a second-tier competition, and we'll be going into it expecting that, but we'll be giving our best and we'll have our best crack. So we'll see where we're at.
Is there a sense that you're not just representing St Helens in this game, you're representing this competition and rugby league in this country?
Yeah, like I said, obviously with how Super League gets viewed, it's Super League against the NRL, and obviously the rivalry between England and Australia, so hopefully that there's a few more people other than Saints fans that can get behind us a little bit, but we know what we're up against.
If Saints are going to be successful in that game, you just feel like he's going to have to be at his very best. Kyle, we'll just quickly wrap up on St Helens. Obviously, World Club Challenge this weekend is taking all the headlines at the moment.
Yep.
5 in a row. Can it be done? It's never been done before.
Well, no, but neither had 4, had it? So, that's what they went with, and I've got no doubt as well that the motivation is remember, JP will remember very well, they lost 5 in a row, didn't they? So they've got chance now between them. A lot of players still in that group who played in those losses as well. And those are now the leaders of that side. They've got a chance now to perhaps look at that and go, right, well, let's make up for that and let's do 5 in a row. That's the way I believe they'll go about it this season.
Well, let's move on to your former club, JP. Beaten finalists, of course, last season, Leeds Rhinos. Despite that result, there must be a pretty optimistic, upbeat mood around what Leeds can do this year based on what happened in the last 3 months of last season. Yeah,
I think the last 3 months for the Rhinos were special as a group for them, to get to the final against St Helens. But ultimately against St Helens, they were second best all the way through the game. And I think for the Rhinos, it's about finding that progression over these last 2 to 3 months in the pre-season, about how they can match St Helens, who are the benchmark. I think the exciting thing for the Rhinos is that they brought Rowan in middle of the year and they had instant results from it. I think 2 or 3 months of himself working with the players is going to allow them to be good, and they want to be around the top 2 or 3 again. We don't want to start we saw till last season. And I think the key for the Rhinos at the moment is getting some players back from injury. You don't want to say that at the start of the year, but that's just the way it is. They've got some strike out at the moment, and they've got the big guy Mikolai out, but as soon as they come back, I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with.
I spoke to a couple of Rhinos players in the build-up to this season, and they've all said very similar things about Rowan Smith suiting Leeds Rhinos as a club and the kind of rugby that we associate, that really attacking, aggressive, in-your-face kind of football. As someone obviously with Leeds so close to your heart, that must have been such a refreshing and encouraging thing to see.
Yeah, it was great to see the way the team played at the back end of the year. I just like to see players fulfil the potential. You know, it's a great thing to watch as a player who's finished playing now, when you see players enjoy themselves, do what they like doing. And I like watching the side of rugby where you're offensive with the ball, you're passing the ball around. But I think the key is, and this is where Saints are great, is Saints back it up with brutal defence. They know, you know, if we give the ball away while we're moving this ball around, you're not going to score against us. And I think that's where the Rhinos need to improve going into that season. If they can do that, then they'll challenge Saints.
Kyle, the impact that Smith had when he came in last year, I felt was almost reminiscent of the impact that Justin Holbrook had when he first joined St Helens, and that real uptick. It's easy to fall into the trap of kind of analysing rugby league down to its finest grain of sand, but sometimes just a personnel change and a change of mindset and a bit of a confidence boost can just make so much difference, can't it?
Yeah, look, you know, before both coaches that you mentioned there in Holbrook and Smith, before they took over, you know, both clubs were in a real dark, depressive state. You know, the players weren't happy, the supporters weren't happy, and sometimes you can just get a guy who's young and fresh and have all these good ideas, and it's the same group of players, which is the crazy part. But you've just got that thing again, what JP said about players being happy, players playing to their potential, and sometimes it just takes one guy to come in and just sort of lift the mood of the place and just go, right, this slate's now clean, these are what I believe in, these are my values. If you do that, you'll play each and every week, and they make it competitive again and they make it fun. And I think that's exactly what Smith did. You know, you look at the amount of tries they were scoring. You only score loads of tries when you're all in good mood and good spirits and you're enjoying playing the game, and you're backing yourself and you're trusting each other. And you can clearly tell there from what you've just said that is probably something that Rowan Smith did. Just come up and just let the lads have fun, but work hard at the same time.
Well, let's just lift the lid on inside that Leeds camp a little bit and catch up with Ash Hanley. Well, it's soon come around again, start of the new season. How ready do you feel to attack 2023?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Obviously, it's not been that long since the grand final loss, so a bit of a sour taste in our mouths. But you know, we're getting a full pre-season with Rowan now and learning, you know, his bits that he's bringing to our team. So enjoying it. A lot of fresh new faces at the club as well. So it's going to be a little bit different this year, but I'm up for it.
What's it been like working on the Rowan now that he's got a pre-season to kind of mould the side into his vision?
It's difficult actually. I think everyone's having to learn his way. I don't think you can sort of rock up with your boots on at training and know what you're doing anymore. It's more of, you know, there's a lot to take on. We've got quite a young group, so I think he's wanting to put his own mould on the players and play his style of rugby, and if you don't know it, you're going to be left out. So I think there's a lot of learning that we need to do, and you know, there's a lot of stuff that you need to open your eyes and be smart with it. It's not just about, you know, 5 drives and a kick with Rowan. He's got a lot of ideas, and it's fun, it's different, and you know, I'm looking forward to the year.
Ash Hanley there of the Leeds Rhinos. They open up opening night tomorrow at the Warrington Wolves. Warrington, Carl, you got a look last year of what life is like at that place. Obviously a disappointing campaign in terms of league position for them last season. Do you feel the foundations are set? Obviously new signings. Daryl Powell's had a year to have a real look at the club. Do you think the foundations are set to have a better, more progressive view?
Well, look, you know, Daryl Powell came into that job with 14 players off contract. You know, that was made clear a number of times throughout the year, and he had a job on his hands to sort of clear out what he needed to clear out and bring in what he needed to bring in. And now this is the very first Daryl Powell side, if you like. He's brought in everybody. There's no more excuses for him really in that sense. And I don't ever remember a season kicking off where there's been one man under so much pressure already. You know, if he has to get that result against Leeds Rhinos, because, you know, speaking from experience, that place was, you know, it was pretty toxic really, you know, in terms of the atmosphere in and around the ground where the club were at. You know, there's a lot of good people at that club, don't get me wrong, but good people don't win games and they don't lift titles, do they? So, you know, I just think that it's so important that he gets off to a good start, because if he doesn't, you know, there's going to be an awful lot of questions being asked pretty early on. Some of the players he's brought in, you know, he's been dealt injuries already, suspensions. That can't be helped, but having said that, if you're going to go on and you're going to make any sort of dent in the competition, you're not just relying on 2 or 3 players, are you? You know, so really the jury's out on this group for sure.
As Kyle mentioned, JP, they're already down on troops going into round 1. There's going to be a lot of moving parts to any success that Warrington have this season, but for me, when you watched how George Williams played at that World Cup for England, unrecognisable at times for the George Williams that played for Warrington, how important is it that he gets a pack in front of him, that gets them on the front foot, gets him quick ball that he can play off and actually play the brand of rugby we know George Williams is capable of?
Yeah, George Williams was outstanding in the World Cup, and it's interesting you're saying off the back of a pack that was dominating. I thought he probably played his best game against Amor in the semi-final where they were on the back foot a little bit. So I think what's really interesting, we've got round 1, we've got a must-win game. I love that. You know, straight away we're into it, right? And I just think with Darryl, we're given a little bit of handicap at the start of the season. You've got to give him till Easter time at least. Now, George Williams, for me, needs to step up. I would love to see George Williams play for Warrington in the form that he shows for England, because I believe he's the best British player we have. When George Williams is at 10 out of 10, there's not a player near him. You talk about players in the competition. Morgan Knowles is a great player, but George at his best can win games on his own, and George is going to have to do that at the start of this year, I think, for Warrington to be successful.
Predictions then for this game, JP?
Well, I'm always going to go Leeds. I'm not going to go against
It's a stupid
Leeds.
question, really, wasn't it?
So I'm going to go Leeds to win a tight game and put pressure on the Warrington Wolves club.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to think Warrington have, you know, they almost are scrapping right from day one, and I think, you know, the true test of a character, the true test of a player is what he does when the chips are down, and I think this is going to be a good start for Warrington.
Well, we'll move on to Friday night, then second game of the season. Lee Leopards against Salford. The Lee thing has been a bit of a remarkable story, really, this off-season. A very bold rebrand from Derek, but when you put all the kind of talk about what their kit looks like to one side, they've actually made some pretty shrewd signings, Carl.
Yeah, they have. You know, I think the number 9, Edwin Apape, I think he's outstanding. I think he'll be a real big player for Lee. I don't think Lee are going to be in trouble, I really don't. You know, a lot of people have been saying they're going to... I think there's other clubs who perhaps should be feeling a bit more twitchy before Lee. I think they've got enough in there to scalp 1 or 2 top teams, but win those games in and around them. I think they'll be all right this year. You mentioned the signings they've brought in. You always just feel with Lee, the kind of... The players that they brought in, the biggest job there that Adrian Lamb and Derek Beaumont to an extent has got is keeping a lid on the players. Do you know what I mean? That you always just feel that, you know, if things start going really well, that 1 or 2 of those players could perhaps get a little bit excited, a little bit carried away. I think the biggest thing that Lee can do is look after what they've got in house, really. And if they do that, I think they'll have a good year.
They come up against the Salford side, Jamie, who were on fire at the back end of last season, pushed St Helens all the way in that semi-final, and it's always a bit tricky summing up what Salford are going to do at the beginning of the season, because you never quite know, but they do look in a good position.
Yeah, look, I think at the back end of the year, Salford give Saints a better game than Leeds. They look closer to beating them in that game. And I think they've got a stellar back line. You look at the quality in the back line, as we spoke off air, they're going to score tries in that. I think this is going to be a big challenge for them, though. I think, you know, like Bowman's back is in here with a bang. And I think what I like about the Lee side is that they've not really signed journeymen who are used to churning around the bottom of the league. You know, they've signed players who are played at Leeds Rhinos, played at Warrington Wolves, that are used to being in teams that have a higher win ratio than a losing ratio. And I think Kyle just got it right with Lee there, that it's making sure the highs aren't too high, the lows aren't too low, and managing that group. Whereas Salford, I think Salford need to win this if they want to get in for this top 6, if they want to challenge and get into the top 6 again. The main man's Brodie Croft. Yeah,
we talk about that back line, the amount of points that they scored, the second highest point scorers in the competition last season. The style of football was spoken about a lot. Let's just catch up now with one of that back line, and Ryan Briley.
One of the things that really caught the eye last season was the style of football that Salford played. You kind of became Super League's great entertainers. Is that a kind of conscious thing to go out and play that kind of way, or is it just a product of the players that you've got?
Yeah, I like it. I also like what you said there about the fact that we were the entertainers. That's quite cool. I think if I was a fan, I'd want to support a team what does throw the ball around like us. What I will say, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. It's certainly not off the cuff. There's a lot of people in the process what has to be in the right position and right place, and if there's not that person in the right place, it doesn't look great. It looks a bit ugly, to be honest. So I think when you determine success, and what you mentioned before about getting so close to the grand final, I think that's success for me as well, making sure that you play a great brand of rugby, what people want to come and watch and everyone talks about it. I think that's an element of success. So I think there is a conscious effort that we want to express ourselves, but there's no pressure with it. And I think if there is any pressure, we kind of enjoy that tag of being that team who people want to come and watch.
Yeah, looking like it's going to be a packed house at Leigh Sports Village on Friday night. Has the potential to be maybe the game of the round. Carl, I'll come to you first. Predictions for this one?
Yeah, look, I just think, again, similar to what I said earlier with Warrington, I just think that, there's a lot of buzzing around Leigh. They've got you're scouting for girls, the big band. Derek's making a big, massive moment of them back in Super League. And I think all the players who were there, they aren't journeymen. Your players like Jack Hughes and Robbie Mulhern, all those signings they brought in, they'll all be wanting to make sure that they get off on a good start, really. And again, I think the talk of them, people saying that they're going to be relegated will be a motivating factor early on. So I think they'll be okay against Salford this week.
JP?
Yeah, I think Salford are going to get ambushed a little bit there. I think Beaumont's back with a bang, and I think the team will be the same as well. I think they'll just edge it, Leigh, and get off to a good start.
Well, moving on, also Friday night, Catalans travel to Wakefield. JP, we were talking about this off air as well, that very difficult to assess Catalan Dragons at this stage. I really don't know what I think of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think with Catalans it's difficult because they've had player turnover, and I think as a side their performances probably peaked the season before last, and I think they're in a rebuilding phase now. I just think their overseas signings really need to add to what the French are doing, and again I think they'll be in and around the playoffs, whether at the top end of that, I'm not so sure. I think they still need another season in transition to get the squad to where Steve Mack wants it.
It's usually the case, though, isn't it? Every Catalan side, you're always saying it's the Aussie imports. So whoever they're bringing over, they've got to have a real stellar year for them to be serious title contenders. And I think, for exactly what you said there, I think 2 years ago, that was that Catalan Dragon side that faced Saints in the final, that had been building for a couple of years at that point. Sam Tompkins, Mickey McLaurin, all them players in at the right sort of peak of their age, and it was almost like you felt that was their absolute chance. But yeah, it's sad to say really, but they are looking towards these Aussie players to make sure that they have a good season.
At Wakefield, Kyle, the bookies have them towards the bottom of the table, suggesting that they're going to be in a scrap against relegation. Obviously, lots have changed there, but is there a sense that they might just go under the radar a little bit? They stay very tight-knit. If they can get the mentality right, stay resolute, they might, as JP said about Leigh, just ambush a few teams.
Well, what you normally find with Wakefield is they're either in a dogfight or they surprise everyone and finish in the playoffs and then bow out round one of the playoffs, really. That's kind of what you get with Wakefield, really. I do agree with the bookies. It's an old club of mine. I spent 3 great years there, but I do think that they are the ones who are perhaps in trouble. I know they're doing an awful lot of good stuff in terms of redeveloping the stadium and whatnot, but ultimately I don't think there's enough quality in that squad to stay up in Super League. Obviously got the young coach now as well in Applegarth, and he's going to be tested. There's no doubt about that. He'll have some sort of challenging times this season, and let's see how he handles that.
So predictions for Friday night?
I think Catalan win. I think a Catalan win for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Catalan just to edge it. Very tight. Wakefield's a difficult place to go play, but I think the Catalans win will probably sign the signal for the rest of the year for Wakefield.
Just before we take a look at the remaining Betfred Super League action this weekend, just want to point you in the direction of some live rugby league right here on the Sportsman. Round 1 of Betfred League 1. We've got the Midland Hurricanes against Cornwall on Sunday afternoon. You can tune into that from 2:45. Bringing you all the action from the Alexander Stadium in Birmingham. We brought you 20 live games last year. We're doing the same again. We started off on Saturday. Carl, you were part of our team for that one in Wigan. It was fun, that, wasn't it? Challenge Cup, first round.
It was brilliant. Obviously Wigan St Pat's into Rosebridge, only a sort of half a mile of terraced houses really splits the two sides. So the whole area, the whole village, if you like, was all there. There was about 2,000 people there, and it was just great to see. Those sorts of scenes are really, for me, it's what makes the cup special. It all starts. Those players, they all know that the reality, they're not going to get to Wembley, of course, but their dream can start there. And there was a brilliant carrot. Both players knew before it they go to Workington in the next round, and a crack at playing semi-professional against against some semi-professionals. We said at the start, didn't we, that as a player you want to play in the biggest games you can. Well, playing against the League One side is certainly some of the biggest games that those players will ever play in.
Someone had obviously had enough of you about halfway through the second half. Someone very helpfully unplugged our commentary desk.
That's right,
just took the lead out the mains halfway through.
They must have got sick of hearing us, unplugged us for 10 minutes, but all good.
Yeah, brilliant to be bringing you those kind of games right here on the Sportsman. Plenty more to come, and as I say, this Sunday, 3 o'clock kickoff from the Alexander Stadium, home of the Commonwealth Games, of course, in Birmingham. Midland Hurricanes take on Cornwall in Betfred League One. So join us for that. Everything right here on the Sportsman. Exclusive and free all year. 20 live games will be here every week on The Last Tackle, your home of Rugby League Online.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League, the home of Betfred Super League Online.
Tune in to Last Tackle every Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Right, straight back into the Betfred Super League then, and moving on to the game that Channel 4 will be bringing us. Wigan Hull KR. Kyle, difficult to pick this one actually. On face value, everyone will look at this and go, Wigan are the favourites, but I quite like the look of what's happening at Hull KR.
Yeah, no, look, they've obviously brought in some quality signs. I think what they've let go and what they've replaced with has been a huge improvement for Hull KR. And it's a repeat, isn't it? Round one last year, of course, Wigan won 24-10 that day. So that's a repeat. It was Matty Pete's first game in charge as a Wigan coach. Well, now it's Willie Peters for Hull KR. So, they've got a good backroom staff there, haven't they? Danny Maguire, Frog as well. He's there. And, so they've got everything going. They've got everything going right in their way. They've recruited well, and it should be a great start.
Yeah, JP, you obviously know Hull KR well as a club. Everything's there. We know that from them to be competitive. Is this the year they finally kind of crack it?
I think that the club as a whole has got big ambitions to become a top 4 club, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And when a club has those kind of lofty ambitions, I think it just permeates through everybody, through players, through staff. They've had a massive pre-season and all that. I've been speaking to Danny Maguire, a really tough pre-season. And I think Hull KR are going to come out of the blocks. I think Hull KR have got a chance of being one of the form teams in the first 10 rounds of this. So I think, Wigan are a great side. Mike Peace, I love Mike Peter as a coach, and I think they've signed well with the centres. They're going to miss Bateman. But I think Hull KR are going to upset the bookies here, and I think Hull KR are going to edge this one at home.
Well, you mentioned those new signings in the centres at Wigan. Let's hear from one of them now and catch up with Toby King.
New colours, new season. How are you feeling coming into 2023?
Yeah, really excited. It's a big opportunity for me to come and play at a club like Wigan. So I won't take it lightly, and I'm buzzing to get out there.
Do you feel a sense of pressure coming to a club that's, there is such a demand to win stuff?
I won't say pressure. I won't put that on me, but there's definitely I've got to perform. It's a club like I say that wants to win. I want to win stuff. There's that one trophy I've not won, and I've come to the right place to do it. It'd be class to do it with Wigan, and definitely the right environment.
Wigan took a massive step forward last season, obviously winning the Challenge Cup and challenging in those semi-finals. Do you feel that you're coming into a team that's ready to go one further and challenge on all 3 fronts?
Yeah, definitely. And I'd love to add to this team as well. So bring some of my threats to Wigan and stuff. Hopefully I can improve them. But definitely to come and help them achieve even more success would be good.
It must be exciting coming into a back line that's got so much threat and pace in it already.
Yeah, definitely. Let's say I think Bevan French, Sheffield and Jake, Liam Marshall are all absolutely rapid. So to put them away and hopefully they can do the rest. So it's exciting, definitely.
Yeah, we spoke about Salford's backline, Wigan's backline, very, very dangerous, as we know. JP, you've had a look at this game. You still tipping up Hull KR for this?
Yeah, I fancy Hull KR. I think Wigan are a good side. Wigan will be challenging for it, but I just feel that off the back of the pre-season Hull KR have had, they've got the new coach in, and it's always difficult to play there. It's hostile atmosphere. I think they'll just have enough to edge it.
Come on.
Oh, look, it's going to be very close to call. I just think Wigan are going to get the job done, and I agree it is a very difficult place to go. I just think Wigan are going to be stinging a bit from last year and how they limped out against Leeds in that playoff. Of course they got their hands on the Challenge Cup and they are wanting to chase down Saints, and I reckon that they'll be sort of still stinging really from last year. I expect a real quick, fast start from them.
Well, rounding off the weekend, Hull FC versus Castleford. Both teams obviously missing out on playoffs last season, Carl, and it feels like we speak about that Leeds-Warrington game being a must-win early on in the season, but it feels like it's very important for both of these sides to make a fast start.
Yeah, well, look, one of them is, that's the reality of it. One of them will come away with a win there. But I just feel that with Castleford and Hull, so many times they just let you down, don't they, across the year? You always feel that when the signings that they bring in or the start to the season they have, they just don't maintain it, and it must be frustrating being a fan of those clubs for sure. But look, again, it's round one, and it's important that they get off to a good start. And going back to Hull KR, I fancy Hull KR finishing above their nearest this year.
JP, there's 6 playoff places. We're probably trying to fit. Well, all 12 teams will have ambitions of being in them, but it's not like it has been in previous seasons where you're kind of 1 to 6 almost works itself out. We're trying to squeeze a lot of teams into not many places here.
Yeah, I think we're squeezing maybe 9 or 10 into 6. I think Carl just got it perfectly right with Hull FC and Castleford. Their issue is inconsistency in levels of performance. You see, one week you'll see 100% commitment, 100% desire and a great performance. Next week, as a fan, you'll be questioning their enthusiasm and commitment, and that's what those coaches have got to get right there. I think Lee Radford signed really well at Castleford, and I think Hull FC's biggest challenge will be how Tony Smith and Adam Pearson manage each other off the pitch. I know those two well, both good fellas, but both could start an argument in an empty house, so it'll be interesting to see how those two get under a bit of pressure next year.
Yeah, lots of change at Hull FC, some new signings joining their new coach Tony Smith, of course. Let's catch up with one of them now, Tex Hoy.
Tex, welcome to the Betfred Super League. Are you pleased to be here and looking forward to getting stuck in?
Yeah, pleased to be here. It's been a pretty easy transition so far, and training's been pretty solid. And looking forward to the season. So it's coming quick. So yeah.
How much about the competition and Hull FC as a club did you know before you came over?
I didn't know much when I signed, but when I signed it, started watching a couple of games, waking up a bit early. Depends on my schedule back home, and so to see the kind of footy they play over in, it's a lot more free flowing. It looks a bit quicker as well, and it didn't really do too much, but I'm just keen to learn as the year goes.
You've been working under Tony Smith, of course, who's a bit of a coaching legend over here. What's it been like working with him so far?
Yeah, good. He's very laid back compared to what I was used to back home, and he's been good. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he's just letting us play what we see. And over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, we can gel and put some good performances on the early stage of the season.
And for Super League fans who might not have seen too much of you play, what can you bring to the team?
I feel like a lot of attack and just a lot of direction. I think I like getting my hands on the ball, and whether that's first receiver, second receiver, third receiver, just playing eyes up footy. I'm not going to get used to structure to get the places, but once the structure's gone, I just like getting my hands on the ball and kind of just free running, and use my speed to the best of my ability to put other people in space and give up opportunities.
All right, gents, tough one to call this one. JP, you can go first. How does this finish?
I'm going to go with Castleford winning this one away from home. I just think they've had a bit of adversity. They'll pull together as a group and win this.
Yeah, I'm going to go Hull. I just think obviously a new coach there in Tony Smith, and they always seem to start well, Hull FC. So I'm going to go that. The question is, can they maintain it?
Well, 5 Super League games this week. We'll just quickly touch on Huddersfield, obviously not in action this week. Penciled into play St Helens. That game's been pushed back to the World Club Challenge. Kyle, they look like, on paper, they've recruited very well again. We saw the progress they made last season. If I was a Huddersfield fan, I'd be pretty excited about this year.
They've probably got one of the best squads on paper, but whether that transpires to the field is another thing. They've got some real quality. They've got some good leaders in there. I thought Chris Hill was outstanding in the World Cup, and he seems to have, found he's almost turned the clock back a little bit, hasn't he? But, him, Theo Fage, Kevin Nagama as well, another big player they brought in. And I just like the way that Ian Watson's he's almost done exactly what he did at Salford, hasn't he? Just slowly but surely made little improvements. Of course, they'll be bitterly disappointed about how they crashed out against Salford. But there's a learning there for that team. The challenge for them is to replicate what they did last year, but just have that bit more steeliness, that bit more edge about them come next time when they get in a big game. Of course, Challenge Cup final, losing side on that day, and they were the better team, weren't they? You know, they had it inside the last sort of 2 minutes, but there's learns from them. If they can learn from that, then they're in for a good year.
No, you're pretty sweet on them as well, JP.
Yeah, I agree with what Kyle said there. I think Ian Watson is a very good coach at maximising the potential of his players. You don't often say he's signed poorly or he's signed a player and he gets the best out of them. And I just think they're ready to win silverware next year. I think as a side, sometimes you have to lose some finals to gain the experience of how to win a final. I think they're in that process, and I think not many people are talking about them. And I think they're going to be the ones who'll feature in at least one of the finals and maybe win one of the finals this year.
Yeah, I think it could be a big year for the Giants. Just before we wrap up for this show, an announcement yesterday. Certain Kyle Amor has been added to the Man of Steel panel. Kyle, an honour to be asked, I guess.
Oh yeah, without doubt. You know, obviously I'm doing a lot more of the sort of the media side of the game and seeing an awful lot more games. So you know, when they called me up and asked would I, you know, play my little part in sort of being on that panel, I was delighted to. You know, such a huge award, and obviously a former winner here next to us as well. And you know, it's just great to be asked to do something like that.
Well, gents, Carl, Jamie, thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in at home. We are back with The Last Tackle for a brand new season. We'll be here all the way from round 1 to the grand final and everywhere in between. Don't forget, this Sunday, 2:45 coverage starts from Betfred League One. It is the Midland Hurricanes against Cornwall. Can't wait to tune into that one, bring you that game right here on The Sportsman. We'll be back next week with The Last Tackle. We'll see you soon.